All right, we are live again today. Thank you everyone for joining us. As always, my name is James. Thank you for joining us. I'm an activist for the pro-extinction movement. So we are a movement of activists around the world, a movement which started 4 years ago and is growing globally quickly. And we are people who are against the existence of suffering and against allowing it, and in favor of doing everything to prevent suffering and to provide safety from it, essentially to make the world fair, to make it safe. And the only way to do that is with extinction. So that is the right thing to do. Extinction is the best thing that we can possibly work towards and advocate for, because it is the maximum prohibition of cruelty and unfair forcing of animals and people to suffer. So the pro-extinction movement is against the existence of extreme suffering and bad lives, right? Whereas sadly most people are totally in favor of extreme suffering and bad lives being forced onto innocent, poor animals and people and children. So effectively it's like supporting the torture of innocent children so that you can have fun, right? Supporting bad lives so that you can have a good life is, it is the ultimate evil, and that is exactly what everyone is happy to do. So we need to change the world. We need to make the world start to care about the victims of suffering, to start to care about all life. Right now, most people, pretty much everyone, has discriminatory empathy, meaning that they only care about themselves and not others. Whereas extinctionists are the opposite. So we care about everyone, every individual, every animal, every person, and making sure that there is no suffering, effectively. So if you care about every individual, right, if you care about all life equally, like extinctionists do, then you would come to understand that it's not fair for those in bad lives to be tortured so horrifically just so that some people can have good lives or slightly okay lives. It's something that cannot be made acceptable. So for most people, they have a dynamic where cruelty and child abuse, animal abuse, etc., can be made acceptable as long as enough people benefit. Now, there's no like actual ratio or specific numbers for how many people they need to benefit. It's really more just of that's how like their mentality plays out effectively. So most people don't even know what sort of nonsense is going on in their head, which actually makes them support suffering and believe that there's some sort of magical balance which makes it okay. And so this magical balance of, the bad lives, the children being abused horrifically, it just always automatically balances out. So that means that, all the suffering in the world, it will never matter, effectively, and it will never be so bad that it justifies doing anything about it. You know, people could start abusing more and more children, even worse and worse, and it will never reach a point where we should try and stop it, for most people. Whereas, again, for extinctionists, it's the exact opposite. Any amount of harm to any individuals is unacceptable. But it's crazy how inverse this is for most people, where any amount of harm is acceptable. Any amount of cruelty existing is perfectly acceptable. Any amount of child abuse, perfectly acceptable. So the thing is that it's probably better to describe it as that there is no amount of suffering that will ever make people care. There's no amount of suffering or severity that will ever make them actually understand that it is a problem and that it can't be allowed. And this is because they cannot understand suffering as a concept. Most people just cannot understand it. There's lots that goes into the concept of suffering, like extreme suffering, when it's unbearable. There's lots of different types and ways that suffering can manifest, and there's lots of extreme types. And so the more extreme it is, the less people empathize with it, right? So you have people empathizing with incredibly small problems, like ridiculously small problems, making an entire whole drama out of it and acting indignified, like, oh my God, this one person to me was rude to me one time, and, it's just ruined my whole life. Or, oh, I didn't get to win that competition. Just, I can never get over it. Meanwhile, the individuals with the real problems, like animals and humans in lives of pure hell, screaming in pain all day, every day, begging for death, right? And then people think that their problems are somehow even more important, right? Like, oh, someone was rude to me one time. When did I transition? I've never transitioned. Thanks for asking, I guess. So, yeah. Essentially, you have immoral humans, like, completely devoid of ethics or morality or empathy for others. And that's over 99.999% of humanity. Which again is because they have just evolved out of being animals, and they're still evil. They're still animalistic, still monstrous. So, yeah, it's only now that humanity is evolving into rational and empathetic, intelligent individuals. My computer's just like, oh, by the way, I'm shutting down now. I hate it when it does that. It's like, please don't. Okay, I think I cancelled it. Anyway, yeah, so most people would accept any amount of suffering. Extinctionists won't accept even the smallest amount. Right, so there's a stark comparison there, really, if you think about it. Most people will accept any amount, just infinite, just fields and fields of tortured victims. It can go on forever, and people will never say, okay, let's stop it. Whereas extinctionists, even one victim, we would give up our lives to fight for that victim and to defend them, right? Whereas other people would just force others to suffer, cause suffering, allow suffering. We need to stop the suffering. And the only way to do that is with total extinction, right? So that there's no more life that can suffer or force others to suffer, either through aggression or reproduction, by accident. Yeah, so as long as life exists, it will always suffer horrifically and unfairly. And that's just not acceptable. For most people it is. It's like, yeah, who cares? But for extinctionists and rational, empathetic people, yeah, we should absolutely care about others instead of just ourselves. And that means, yeah, not allowing suffering, not allowing an unfair system. So in the same way that most people would never do any activism against slavery, right? If slavery still existed today, most people would probably support it. Okay? So it's the same with suffering and bad lives. Most people are just totally happy for any amount of bad lives to be forced onto innocent animals and people and children. Just effectively send them to prison and torture them for their entire life, even though they're innocent, so that we can have fun at their expense. It's pure evil, guys. It's pure evil. So letting life exist is like the least ethical thing that you can possibly do, whereas preventing life with extinction is the most ethical thing that you can do. Okay, there is nothing more ethical than extinction. And if you guys would like to debate this, then join the Discord here and let's bring you in. Let's hear your opinions. It's very easy to criticize in the chat, but can you do the same criticism to my face, guys? All right, let's see if there's any interesting questions in the comments. Do you think killing animals creates bad karma? No, I don't believe in karma. I just believe in providing safety equally and making sure nobody is suffering ever again. Why would it matter for the amount of pain from that suffering if there is joy? A lot of people ask this, right? Why would any amount of suffering override even the smallest amount of happiness is essentially the question. Like, why would child abuse be bad, right? Surely the happiness outweighs the suffering, outweighs any amount of suffering. So if a child abuser is happy, then surely that just default outweighs the suffering of his victim. No, absolutely not. And it will never work like that. So no amount of happiness can actually outweigh or justify or make up for extreme cruelty. So, most people would say, yeah, if one person abuses a child, that's wrong, right? But this mentality of, Well, if enough people are enjoying it, then surely it's fair, right? If there's one unhappy person in a bad life and 1,000 people in a good life, then surely that's fair, right? Well, what if the suffering that person goes through in that bad life is just as bad as the suffering of child abuse, right? But let's imagine there's a child that just gets abused to death, okay? And then there's somebody else that suffers just as bad as that in a different way. Is it now better because it wasn't directly caused by a person? The answer is no. So if there's 1,000 people raping a child to death, then it's not okay now just because there's 1,000 people. And if there's 1,000 happy people who can only exist if bad lives exist, and there's 1,000 happy people and one person in a bad life as a result, then it's the exact same as 1,000 people raping the victim, right? Whether or not they allow the victim to suffer, or depend even on the victim's suffering, right? So like the way life works, you force 1,000 people to exist, and then one of them, ends up depressed, gets ill, and has a terrible life. Now the other people will say, well, I didn't directly cause that, so it's not my fault, and we can just allow it, right? We can allow them to have a terrible life, so that we can have good lives. So you can't have good lives without the bad lives. That's physically impossible. Okay, so yeah, those 1,000 people having a good life at the expense of someone in a bad life, it is no worse than the 1,000 people all getting together and gang raping a child for their entire life and then killing them. Right? It is the same. What's the difference, guys? I'd love to hear it in the chat. What is the difference between 100 people gang raping a child and 100 people in a good life with one person in a bad life? There's no difference, right? Because the reason for this is that the cause of your suffering doesn't necessarily make a difference, right? So you can suffer worse from an illness that nobody caused than you can from being abused by a child abuser, right? It's possible that the disease will do much worse than the child abuser will do, or vice versa, right? So what causes the suffering, whether it's a disease or a child abuser, makes no difference, right? What difference does it make? None. It doesn't make a difference. The only difference it makes is in the minds of people who are looking to create fake, non-existing differences in order to try and defend one type of suffering over another. That's all it is, essentially. So yeah, it's not better to allow one person into a bad life so that others can have a good life than it is for a group of people to rape a child, right? If a group of people are essentially forcing another one into a bad life so that they can benefit, it's really no worse or no better than a group of people just raping a child. So that's it, right? And when it comes to the allowance of suffering, the allowing of bad lives, people just kind of gaslight themselves. They trick themselves into thinking, well, if I'm not directly causing it, if I allowed it and I depend on it, then it's fine. As long as I don't directly cause it, right? As long as you can't see me punching them in the face, if I indirectly cause that suffering, then it's fine, right? It's only if you can actually see me red-handed, then it's wrong. So this just doesn't make sense, guys, right? It's literally just a way to defend evil, right? So saying that, yeah, the existence of bad lives is fine, right? Nobody causes that on purpose. Nobody's going out of their way to intentionally do that. Then it's insane, right? You could have an ocean of victims begging for help and say, well, nobody caused it on purpose intentionally, so yeah, that ocean of victims will just have to suffer. As long as we didn't cause it, we should just allow it. It's all just different types of selfishness manifesting basically into different types of excuses and selfish excuses for trying to gaslight you into letting them get away with allowing suffering. That's what it is. It really is gaslighting. All right, let's see if there's any questions. Bro, are you a professional debater? Yeah, basically. So if anyone wants a debate, join the Discord here, and we will have a debate. Now, the thing is that we can pretty much debate anybody successfully, right? There is no way to beat extinction in a debate. So I effectively win every debate by default, right? In fact, I don't think I've really ever lost a debate in all of the hundreds of debates that I've ever done. Because you can't lose a debate when you're literally advocating for not allowing extreme cruelty, right? Guys, let's not allow extreme cruelty. It's not fair to the victims. Maybe the cruelty is worth it for my pleasure and happiness. What if maybe they should suffer so I can be happy? No, that's unfair. So this is how it goes, basically. This is what it's like to debate against extinction. It's like, maybe we should allow extreme cruelty, right? And, on the last stream, that's exactly how the debate went, right? The guy was like, something that justifies the existence of extreme child abuse. Well, I like watching the Formula One, if that counts. And so that's about the level of intelligence that you'll get when debating people who are against extinction. There is no intelligent or even vaguely, even remotely intelligent Seriously got to get the microphone refunded. What a shame. Anyway, yeah, so it's supporting extinctionism is as simple as agreeing with the idea that we shouldn't allow extreme cruelty to innocent individuals. It's as simple as that. So everyone else, their position by default has to be that allowing the worst types of cruelty to innocent individuals is acceptable, right? That we can accept children being sexually abused and murdered, right? That we can accept it, right? That there are things that make that acceptable and worthwhile. That there are types of pleasure or happy lives that suddenly, as long as one person is happy, then it doesn't matter what you do to that child. You could just do anything, right? Any amount of cruelty. Nah, don't worry about it. Yeah, go for it. Have fun, basically, because now it's okay. It's ethical now because one other person somewhere else is happy. So it's just a truly, it's just doing everything in your power to find excuses to defend and excuse cruelty and extreme suffering. That's all people are trying to do constantly because their brain is constantly tricking them into supporting survival and reproduction. Am I saying it's not an act? Yeah, it's obviously not an act. People just look. I mean, when you're asking, "Is this an act?" You're actually demonstrating that what I've been saying, that you're not capable of taking the problem of extreme suffering and bad lives seriously. Right? So a lot of people assume that this show is a joke, that it's comedy, that it's satire, because when you're saying, "Oh, guys, allowing extreme cruelty is wrong," for most people, that's like a joke, basically. It's like, end cruelty? Abolish cruelty? Nah, nice joke, bro. So these same people would have been back in the day supporting slavery, and the activists saying, guys, allowing the slavery it's wrong. We can't allow it. So all these people would say the same thing. Oh, this guy's just another narcissist, right? He's got a god complex trying to free the slaves. Get real, bro. Right? No one's going to let you free the slaves. Ethics has nothing to do with it. You either have the power to do it or not, somebody's saying in the chat. So yeah, all of these people in the chat would have absolutely defended slavery just as they are currently defending extreme suffering and cruelty right now. Just every time you see somebody in the chat criticizing extinction and saying, like, for example, he's a delusional freak, right? So all of these criticisms against extinction, just imagine them being against anti-slavery activists, right? So there's people at the farm saying, free the slaves. Just because they're black doesn't mean they should suffer terribly like this. All these people would turn up and say, oh, what a delusional freak. How is it so I'm reading comments from the chat, right? How is it unfair? Let's see what else. So all of these defenses for extreme suffering, let's see if we can, just imagine them for defending slavery, basically. Are you saying that this isn't an act, right? That you're against slavery and suffering? What? This is crazy. This is insane. Yeah, I'm sure people said that when people were against slavery as well. Slavery still exists. Don't need to defend it. Okay, so you're defending it then. Got it? Wallaby is asking, what is the debate? So we are debating whether or not it is the correct thing to do extinction in order to ethically prevent suffering, right? To ethically carry out total extinction for animals and humans and all life, and total prevention of life ever coming back. Because this is essentially the only way to provide maximum safety for life, maximum safety from being forced into a bad life and from being forced into extreme suffering. So it's not safe for life to exist, and therefore it's not fair or ethical to allow it. Wallaby is saying, who or what is suffering? I love these comments. They're just the best. Like we had someone on debating earlier in the day, and they said, suffering? Where? There is no suffering in the world, right? Nobody is suffering. It's just in your head. And this guy in the chat is saying it as well. Who or what is suffering? So for these people, right, who are so ignorant to look, he's saying suffering from what? So to these people who are so ignorant of the suffering in the world, they genuinely believe that there is no suffering going on in the world. Like none. It doesn't even exist for these people. So all of the child abuse, just they don't know it exists, apparently. Either that or they think the children enjoy it, perhaps. So yeah, all these people saying, what's suffering in the world? It's amazing. It's like, wow, you're a prime example of a dystopian, evil, selfish person, right? Like literally, you're probably eating a cheeseburger, eating a victim of extreme suffering and going, what suffering? It's like a slave owner, spending loads of money that he's just made from slavery and going, what suffering are you talking about? Ching, 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 right? Making it rain. But what suffering? I'm not suffering. So it's amazing. All these people saying, what's suffering in the world? What are you talking about? It's like they don't even realize that animal exploitation causes suffering, that most animals in nature get eaten alive, which obviously causes suffering, that there are people living through lives of depression, chronic pain, disability, that are obviously suffering. There are children being abused right now that are obviously suffering. What's the main topic? Your topic is too broad. Well, no, we have a broad prohibition of allowing extreme suffering. So it is broad in the sense that it should be, right? Providing safety should be broad. So we are working towards a universe with no life and no possibility of life ever again, because it's not safe for life to exist, right? So you should absolutely do prevention of life existing in unsuitable, unsafe environments, right? In the same way you wouldn't want a child to be born into a child abuser's basement, we shouldn't allow life to be born or to exist in unsafe environments like this one. It's not fair. And even worse things than child abuse are happening. So yeah, basically the entire universe is a child abuser's basement, and we need to shut it down because there is loads of abuse going on, right? There are children and animals forced into bad lives every single day. There are, the elderly are facing extreme suffering and lives of pure hell, with dementia and Alzheimer's, elderly abuse, organ failure, etc. So the world is just a meat grinder. It is effectively a torture chamber, and only the lucky ones want the torture chamber to continue, and they want to keep forcing all the victims into it as well. So it's truly madness, and the only solution to the insanity of all of the cruelty in this world and bad lives is total extinction. So look, this is only bad for selfish people, right? The only people who would disagree with extinction are the most selfish, immoral, unethical people, greedy people, right? People that say, oh, end all suffering. Well, I don't care about that. I'm just going to be selfish and focus on my own pleasure. Right? I don't care if there's suffering going on. Who cares? That's it. So we care, right? You don't care. Nobody cares, unfortunately. But the pro-extinction movement cares. Somebody says this is such a victim mindset. Yeah, it should be a victim mindset, right? There are lots of victims in the world, and if you don't care about them, then they will continue to be victimized. So absolutely, it's a victim mindset. Only a selfish person would levy that as a criticism. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, effectively, we live in a complete dystopia, right? Everyone in the society is completely evil. So, like, just take your favorite film with a dystopia, like, I don't know, Star Wars with the Empire, whatever, right? The evil society, like the Empire, full of completely evil people, that is our society, right? It is that. Like 99% of humanity supports an extreme animal exploitation, right? They all say that, yeah, an entire lifetime of extreme suffering for 10 minutes of a sandwich, that's a good deal, right? If you have to suffer for your entire life so that I can have a sandwich, that's a good deal. Now, obviously, it's a good deal for them, but not for the victim. So they're incapable of actually understanding what's fair and what's unfair. It's very obvious, right? It's very obvious. A species like humanity, which literally 99% of them think animal cruelty is a good thing. It's very obvious that, humans have effectively no ability to produce any significant ethics or morality for the world, right? They have no ability to make responsible decisions for themselves or for others, right? They cannot decide responsibly for the safety of themselves or others, right? And so that's why they end up supporting survival and reproduction. So survival and reproduction are both effectively the worst things that can possibly happen, right? If you want to survive, then you're going to end up suffering in horrific ways. So you're essentially prolonging your exposure to extreme suffering. And for example, you could get hit by a car, end up with brain damage, chronic pain, begging for death for the next 50 years, unable to even communicate it. So yeah, that can absolutely happen. It is happening. That sort of stuff is happening all around us, to animals and people every day. And we just hope it won't happen to us, and then don't care when it does happen to everyone else. So it's like the most evil system possible. So someone says, yeah, he must be trolling. Okay, what makes you think this is trolling? So look, like I was saying, when we're talking about, yeah, guys, we shouldn't allow extreme cruelty anymore, people are like, oh, this must be a joke. Not allow extreme cruelty. He must be trolling. So the victims in this world are just a joke to these people, right? Those who are suffering through bad lives, the animals being exploited, etc., they're just a joke to these selfish people, right? It's like, oh, we should help the victims of extreme suffering. And they're like, wow, this guy must be joking. This guy must help the victims of extreme suffering. This guy must be trolling. And part of that is that they're so selfish and greedy and immoral themselves that they can't even understand the concept of somebody else being a good person. So they assume that I have to be trolling because in their head, they cannot validate a valid reason for me to be doing what I'm doing, which is because they are irrational and are prevented from processing thoughts rationally or correctly or accurately. So, a rational person would be able to understand why us activists are trying to end all suffering, whereas an irrational person would say, he must be trolling. There's no way he actually cares about the victims of suffering. I mean, I don't care about the victims of suffering, so there's no way that he could. So he must be trolling. There's no such thing as a good person, right? I'm not a good person. I don't know any good people. So if this guy says he's a good person, he must be lying. He must be trolling. So that is effectively the reality, where we are saying, yeah, we are good people, we are going to help the victims of suffering, and we're prepared to do whatever it takes. We're happy to die for the victims of suffering in order to help them and to work towards extinction. So, yeah, people do struggle to understand that concept. In the same way that I'm sure people, thought Jesus was like some sort of magical person. He was like, oh, just be nice, guys. And people are like, oh my God, he must be God himself. So it's kind of the same thing, right? I'm not saying I am Jesus, but I am saying that if you do the right thing in this world, then people will essentially be like, he's either Jesus or insane, or he's lying or trolling or something. The existence of good people in the world is like, it's shocking for these people. They're like, abolish cruelty? Oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? Abolish forcing others to suffer? Oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? Abolish forcing animals and people into lives of pure excruciating hell? Oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? He must be trolling. Make sure no child gets abused ever again? Oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? Right? James, your prescription is cowardly. The brave prescription is to do the hard work of reducing suffering. That's like saying to an anti-slavery activist, oh my God, you're trying to end slavery? No, you should reduce slavery instead, right? So we should never end slavery. We should only reduce it, right? So yeah, in 2026, we should still have slavery, and we should still be reducing it slightly. We should never end it. And, 500 years from now, we should still have slavery, but it's just slightly reduced compared to now. So that's essentially what these people would advocate for. They're like, end extreme cruelty and lives of pure hell. No, we should never prohibit individuals from being forced into lives of pure hell. We should never prohibit the ultimate harm. We should just reduce it slightly. So who does that benefit? Greedy, selfish people. And who does that hurt? Innocent animals, innocent little children, innocent people that did nothing wrong, right? So it ends up hurting innocent animals and children and people, just so that some greedy, selfish people can have fun, like child abusers, right? Who wants life to exist despite all of the suffering? Child abusers, right? They obviously think that all of the suffering is worth it, right? If they abuse a child and it suffers horrifically, then it's worth it as long as they enjoyed it, right? And so that is the same mentality that people have with being pro-life. Let's allow all the child abuse, it's worth it. Let's allow all the animal abuse, it's worth it, right? That's what they're saying, when they shouldn't. Right? We shouldn't allow any cruelty. We shouldn't allow anyone to be forced to suffer. We shouldn't allow any animal to be forced to suffer, ever. And yet, that is apparently a controversial statement, that we shouldn't allow animals or people to be forced to suffer horrifically is a controversial statement, right? That we shouldn't allow innocent children to be violently raped to death is a controversial statement that everyone disagrees with, right? That we shouldn't allow innocent little girls and boys to be violently raped to death is a controversial statement which most of the planet disagrees with, right? This is how sad the situation is, right? That literally over 99.9% of the population supports child abuse, right? Supports animal abuse. And someone is saying in the chat, if anything, it's the complete opposite. Really? So 99% of the planet doesn't support animal abuse and exploitation. Well, yeah, they do. And over 99% of the planet doesn't support child abuse existing so that life can exist. Yeah, they do. So when you say, this is completely false, no, this is completely accurate. Humanity does support child abuse and animal abuse and elderly abuse, all sorts of abuse, right? The worst types of abuse. In fact, not only does everyone support the existence of child abuse because it's an acceptable price so that life can exist, right? which is just a fact, guys. Don't deny it. Look, someone in the chat is saying, no, they don't. This is crazy. No, you're just trying to have your cake and eat it, bro. Right? That's what everyone's been doing all day today, trying to have their cake and eat it, just non-stop. I don't support child abuse, but I would never end child abuse. It's like, guys, do you not see the contradiction there? You want to have your cake and eat it? You want to say you don't support child abuse, but we should never end child abuse? I mean, how can you say, I advocate for never ending child abuse, but then in the next breath say, I'm against child abuse? Like, you can't advocate for never ending cruelty and child abuse, etc., and then say I'm against it. Like, you can't literally say we should never end child abuse, but I am against it. That is exactly what you're saying if you say I support life existing, but I'm against all of the bad things, right? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't have life exist. You can't support life existing without supporting all of the bad things like child abuse, animal abuse, lives of pure hell. And if you think that you can support life existing without supporting all of the worst things and the horrifically terrible things, then you are just, you're trolling, basically. You're being irrational. You're saying, like, we can support something that causes suffering and extreme harm, and then say that we don't support the harm that comes out, right? We don't need the thing that's causing all the harm, but we're going to keep it going. We don't support it, but we need to keep it going. Like, it's just a complete contradiction, right? So all these people, they just cannot admit, they cannot accept that, they do support all of this extreme cruelty. Okay, we have someone in the Discord. Let's get them on. Hello, how you doing?
Oh, sorry, I'm eating. I'm doing quite well. How about you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
So I just want to bring up real quick, right? What has happened to you so far that has made you pro-extinction because of the suffering that you've faced? Like, I'm just curious because
no. So extinctionists don't become extinctionists because they face suffering. It's because they have enough genetic rationality and intelligence to understand the suffering of others accurately, basically. Whereas most people don't, and so they end up not understanding it. They get confused. They think maybe we should allow the suffering. Whereas we have higher rationality, which allows us to understand more clearly and in sharper just how bad suffering actually is.
Well, in that case, I would not be pro-extinction. I guess I would say I'd be pro-medically assisted suicide. Like, obviously, if someone's unable to find happiness in life, or if they're terminally
what about animals?
Ill, they have chronic health issues.
What about animals?
Animals?
Yeah,
they do that quite a bit. They will stop
they
eating and starve themselves.
Yeah, no, they don't. So animals are the majority of the population, and euthanasia is not available for most of them. And so most of them get eaten alive as children, right? Euthanasia would not really be an option there. So yeah, look, you can't really suggest euthanasia is the solution for all suffering. And it also doesn't help humans either, right? That doesn't prevent someone from, spawning a child in their dungeon and abusing it to death, right?
It's a weird place to go with it, but yeah, I suppose.
It's just an example.
Yeah, fair enough. So, realistically, though, how does that fit into your narrative regarding pro-extinction or extinctionism or whatever it's called? This is the first time I'm hearing of it.
Yeah, it's about not allowing suffering, not allowing anyone to be forced into a bad life or extreme suffering. It's actually not safe for life to exist, and it's actually not even possible to make it fully safe for life to exist. And so we will always have a system of some lucky ones and some horrifically unlucky ones. And really, there's nothing that valuable that life is producing. There's no happiness that can actually make up for all of the extreme suffering. So, yeah, it's not fair to allow life to exist, and we're not going to allow it anymore. There have been voluntary extinction movements in the past, mostly just for humans, like antinatalism, being child-free. But we are the first movement to work towards a non-voluntary extinction for all types of life. So whereas it's just voluntary human for other movements in the past, we are non-voluntary for all types of life. So working towards a universe with no life and no possibility of life ever again, so that there is no suffering ever again. Essentially finding a hostile environment where it's not safe for life to exist, and saying, oh, we should make it sterile so that life isn't forced to suffer terribly.
I see. I definitely do see where you're coming from in that regard. However, would you mind if I say something that may change your opinion slightly, somewhat?
Yeah, go for it.
In the modern century, from a civilization's point of view, comfort, peace, they're relatively new ideas. We come from a long line of ancestry where peace was always a temporary state of things. Happiness, pleasure, whatever it may be, was never the point of life. The nature of the universe, in my opinion, is chaos. For us to create a peaceful existence out of that is inherently unnatural. And so there's other psychotherapists that I've talked to who have discussed the idea that the reason why depression spikes particularly badly in civilization is because of the fact that our brains aren't really equipped to handle modern stresses, like at all. And so we apply the same baseline amounts of suffering / stress / depression to the smallest of issues because that's where we come from. And our brains just did not evolve to handle these modern necessities or unnecessities, depending on how you want to look at it or organize it. Like, nobody chooses to suffer, but also at the same time, nobody chooses to be happy, because happiness is just something that comes with.
But I don't get it though. Like, why does this mean we should allow suffering?
Because suffering is what makes the pleasure of life worth it. We work hard and we get to the things that make us happy.
So what about the victims? Do you think it's worth it? So do you think that, like,
what about the shadows casted by light? Who's to say that the light deserves to exist more than the shadows casted by the light?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's as simple as saying, like, look, we've got terrible things happening. Is it justifiable? Like, can you name something that justifies, raping a child to death?
I cannot justify that, but I can justify my self-hatred from when I was younger based on whether or not I could learn a musical instrument.
If the existence of child abuse can't be justified by anything, right? Then we have to.
You're jumping to extremes.
No, I asked you. I've just asked you. It's not an extreme. It's not an extreme. It's not an extreme. These are extreme and real problems.
To you, raping kids is not an extreme. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you in that regard? Because I'm referring to, like, the stress of, I'm not good enough at something, so I'm going to try to do better at it and make my life better.
Exactly. So you're ignoring all of the victims of extreme suffering.
No, actually,
you've just said that. You've just said, you've just said, let's not focus on the extreme things happening in the world.
I'm not going to make up extreme hypotheticals without talking.
Make up extreme hypotheticals. So you think that child abuse is just a hypothetical thing?
It doesn't. As a kid, like, is this your problem? Like,
you see, that's a very dishonest debate tactic, right? So instead of actually arguing with the logic and the ethics here that I'm trying to present, his counter argument is, were you abused as a kid then? Right? So that just shows a level of desperation, dishonesty, irrationality, inability to defend his position, inability to argue or anything. And so all of these people do the exact same. They will end up resorting to desperate tactics. It's like, he's making too good of an argument. I can't think of anything to say to stop him. Were you abused then? Right? As if that's somehow some sort of intelligent contribution to the conversation. Now, in his head, it probably sounded really smart. And that is essentially the way that the subconscious tricks you into thinking that silly, unintelligent things make sense, right? So that you will... Effectively, when you come into contact with something intelligent, the human brain will trick you into thinking that it's unintelligent, so that you don't adopt an intelligent position, because if you do, then you will essentially break the spell of being an animal, right? You will essentially no longer be tied and, inexorably to your motivations to survive and reproduce. So anything that essentially overcomes or overwhelms the priorities for most people and animals of survival and reproduction, it will be specifically inhibited by the subconscious. Right, if you come into intelligent thoughts regarding survival and reproduction, they will sound unintelligent to you, so that you will just essentially, not listen to anything that takes away from your survival and reproduction. Because if you did, and if you were able to understand things that took away from it, then you wouldn't be very good at surviving and reproducing, and you would have gone extinct a long time ago, right? But your bloodline has incredibly high levels of irrationality, so that nothing will ever deter you from surviving and reproducing. Nothing, right? Even a perfectly rational statement, perfectly rational logic and reasoning, it will sound completely insane to irrational people, because that prioritization of survival and reproduction, that wins, essentially. It comes up against logic that takes away from survival and reproduction, which is correct. And it's like, the only way we can protect survival and reproduction here is to trick the user and the conscious into thinking that it sounds stupid. So it's perfectly correct, but if he understands it, then he's not going to want to survive and reproduce anymore. So we're going to have to trick him into thinking it sounds stupid. So that is exactly what happens with extinctionism and the ideology. Now, extinctionists like myself have evolved with a genetic mutation which gives us enough rational capacity to overwhelm and overcome the irrational anchoring to the motivations of survival and reproduction. So we have realized, hang on, this doesn't make sense, this isn't right, whereas everyone else is still brainwashed and brain controlled, right? Mind controlled into supporting it, even though it makes no sense. Like, imagine if someone used a superpower on you and made you hate your best friend or something, right? It would be the complete opposite of what you should do. And it's the same thing that it does when it comes to understanding survival and reproduction and other rational things as well. It will make them do the opposite, right? Make them do the unintelligent thing, the irrational thing. Okay, guys, so we don't have anyone in the Discord right now. If anybody wants to debate, to ask any questions, to have a discussion, then join the Discord. The link is right here. It's very quick and easy to join and to get you debating on YouTube with me. It takes a few seconds, and you can punch this into your Safari, your Chrome, your Firefox, Internet Explorer on your mobile or on your PC, and you'll join into the debate room, and then we'll get you up. It's very easy if anyone has any questions. So let's see if there's any interesting comments in the chat. Do you support eugenics? Yes, absolutely. We should improve the genetics for humanity. And guys, there's a good trick people are using in the chat. If you really want to get my attention, ping me, write my name, and it will get highlighted effectively. So yeah, do you support eugenics? Yes. We should improve humanity's genetics to make them more rational, so that they will be more willing to agree with the abolition of forced cruelty and suffering. Did Nelson Mandela lack rationality? Yes. Every human lacks rationality, essentially, and they've always been irrational, incredibly irrational. So as humanity, when the first humans started showing up, they were very irrational, right? They were very cruel, very selfish, very evil, right? Because that's what irrational means, right? The more irrational you are, the more evil you are, the more you defend cruelty and suffering, the easier it is for you to eat animals, right? So lions, for example, they can happily, destroy their victims without feeling bad for them. And they needed that, otherwise they would have died, right? If they felt bad for their victims, they wouldn't have been able to eat them, and they would have died. So humans have got the same thing, the exact same thing, but actually much worse. And so since humanity started existing, they've become more and more rational genetically over time. Behavior Bender says, James, do you lack rationality? So that's an excellent question, which almost never gets asked. And the answer is yes. So I am one of the most rational people in the world, but we still have some human irrationality. So for example, I am still irrationally irresponsible sometimes. So for example, in the extinction group chat on WhatsApp yesterday, I was posting some memes And one of them was a video that I created of a blonde girl saying that extinctionism is the sexiest movement with the most rational and empathetic people. It was a bit irresponsible, right? And the other activists did call me out for it and say, you shouldn't be doing that. We need to take this more seriously. So in that sense, I think, everyone struggles with some sort of irrationality. And for rational people like myself, rational humans, humanity 2.0 essentially, we can actually kind of correct those mistakes more easily. We can actually say, okay, I did make a mistake. Let's explore why. And for example, someone earlier was saying that nobody can agree on anything. And that's because of irrationality. So rational people are more capable of agreeing on things because we can actually come to an objective understanding, right? Is that tree on fire, right? A religious person is going to say, "Ooh, it depends how you look at it," right? Whereas a rational person would, two rational people would say, "Yeah, I can see it's on fire," right? We can see the flames. James, do you support forced euthanasia? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I also support preemptive euthanasia. So we will be doing total extinction for animals and people with forced euthanasia. But while we're doing animal extinction, we will need a human society to keep going while we do the animal extinction. And so in that society, there's going to be lots of human suffering, obviously. And I think that the best way to do euthanasia, like assisted suicide, is to do it preemptively so that they don't even have to ask for it, right? Because a lot of people won't have the guts to ask for it either. So we should make those decisions for them. And obviously, we should take their input on it. But at the end of the day, the decision should be with the medical professional and not with the sufferer. Meaning that, it could be decided we are going to euthanize you even if you don't want us to. So that is the way it should be, right? We should make responsible decisions for the safety of others, especially when they can't do it for themselves. And again, most humans are too irrational to make responsible decisions for their own safety or the safety of others. So we are trying to grow the pro-extinction movement. That is why we do activism, we make videos, we do debate streams. Again, if anybody wants to debate, you can join in, hop into the Discord server that I've set up, and it literally takes less than a minute to get you on air, and we can hear your questions, or you can debate, discuss, ask anything. Even if you just want to chill for a bit, why not? Okay, so do we have any more questions? Yeah, it's a mental illness. I got it. That's correct. Yeah, supporting suffering existing is a mental illness. And irrationality itself is also a mental illness. Now, humanity evolved on purpose to be irrational. Like if evolution did it, to be accurate with the science terms here, the evolutionary pressure demanded that life and humans would be completely irrational. And the more irrational they were in regards to survival and reproduction, the better they did at survival and reproduction, right? The more obsessed they were with life existing, like, oh my God, what if there's an afterlife? I can't die, right? What if there's a hell? I have to stay alive. And, Muslims, it's like, well, we have to take over the world with Islam, right? So we have to have as many kids as possible. So all of these things evolved. Like religiosity is a type of irrationality among many types, which specifically evolved, right? The genetics found that brains which favored religion were more likely to survive and reproduce. So yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. Any more questions in the chat? How did you come to this conclusion, seeing as many other rationalists are not pro-extinction? So at the pro-extinction movement, our understanding is that we are the only rational humans in the world. Now, there will be other people who are rational who haven't joined the movement yet, but eventually they will, right? Hopefully. Now, someone's asking about what about if there are rational people that refuse to join the movement? Well, realistically, it wouldn't be rational to do anything other than working towards the right thing, right? Which is to not allow suffering. So it's simple in that sense, right? If you do anything other than the right thing, right? And then yeah, you are irrational or selfish. You're one of the two, effectively. So yeah, I mean, the more rational you are, especially after a certain point, you just become a good person, essentially. You become selfless because you realize that all of your problems aren't actually as big as other people's problems. You realize that actually there's no reason to care about yourself more than others. So extinctionists care about other life, animals, and other people the same. We value them equally as we do ourselves, whereas most people do not do that, right? They have discriminatory empathy. They care about themselves and their family or their race more than others, so they discriminate, whereas we don't discriminate, right? Whereas people have love for themselves or their family, whereas we have love for everyone. So we're willing to take care of everyone and to take care of the world, to be responsible for the world, and that means not allowing suffering. Right? If you're going to run the world and the whole universe, basically, then should you allow suffering or not? What should you do with it? And the only ethical thing to do is to not allow child abuse and all of these other types of extreme torture and horrific suffering. Right? So you either allow suffering and child abuse so that the child abusers can have fun, or you protect the children and protect them from being forced into lives of pure hell. Someone says, this kid is a psychopath and should be monitored. Yeah, speaking out against cruelty in this society will make you sound like a psychopath, right? If you say nobody should be forced to suffer horrifically, it's like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. Nobody deserves to suffer terribly. Like, no animal deserves to be, tortured for fun. It's like, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? Right? Innocent children don't deserve to be raped to death, guys. It's like, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? He must be a psychopath, right? Whereas actually they're the psychopaths that are literally offended by the suggestion that we shouldn't allow cruelty anymore, right? It's as simple as that. Hello from Kosovo. Well, hello. I've been to Kosovo. Pristina. It's a lovely place. Falamendere. James in one. Who benefits when no one exists? The victims. Right, those who would suffer lives of pure hell, and all of those who would have been forced into lives of pure hell had we not done extinction. So the victims of bad lives, those are the ones that benefit from total extinction. And even those who are having a good life now and are having a really happy life, they would benefit from extinction as well, because they would have no chance of suffering terribly ever again. Someone says, I actually agree with this. Then join the movement. Join us through proextinction.com. Join our WhatsApp group, our Discord group. Someone said, I'd love to talk with you more outside of this. Well, we have a Discord group for discussion here, and specifically for debating on YouTube, and kind of a community for this channel. But we also have the main Discord server for the movement, which can be found on our website, proextinction.com. So the Discord on the website and the WhatsApp group on the website are for activists mostly. If you want to discuss or debate, even on the text channels, then join this Discord link right here. Okay, let's see if there's more questions. If nothing exists, no one can observe that the universe is better. You don't need anyone to observe that the universe is better in order to prevent innocents from being forced to suffer. Right? That just doesn't make sense. It's like saying it would be wrong to shut down hell because there would be no victims to observe that there is no suffering anymore, right? It's like saying, we should keep someone suffering in hell just so that they can observe that there is no suffering. Right? That doesn't make any sense, right? We can do it in a way where you don't need to observe the aftermath, right? And even if you do need to observe it, then we can do that with AI and robots. Right, and it really doesn't mean that we should just allow animals to keep suffering terribly in nature. James, you are conflating your own goals with your prescription when criticizing reactions from the public. It doesn't really mean much to me. James, we don't disagree with premises. It's your conclusion that's wrong. You're not fixing the solution. You're eliminating the victims, the sufferers. Well, you say we're not fixing the solution. Or the problem, but we are. The problem is being forced into a bad life and unsafe conditions. So you can't fix that problem, which is why you need extinction. So it's impossible to make life safe for it to exist. The only way you can actually do that
is with omniscience. So unless you are all-knowing, then there will always be infinite unknowns, infinite dangers, infinite risks, and any system that you have with life existing safely can go infinitely wrong in infinite different ways. So life should never exist without certainty of safety, and only omniscience would be able to provide that. And even then, it might not be able to do it either. It might say, we might get omniscience and determine it's still not possible to have no suffering. So extinction and non-existence is the only right thing to do. It is the only solution and the only way to effectively prevent suffering and bad lives. So, you're saying that this doesn't fix the problem, it just gets rid of the subjects that need the help. Well, no, we don't need people that should have to need help. That just doesn't make sense. We shouldn't allow anyone to suffer in unsafe conditions. Someone says the Discord link is invalid. Well, I would suggest you try again. We've had lots of people join. It looks like you've just joined. So, Jean-Philippe, perhaps? Yeah, I'm in the voice channel on Discord if you want to join in, and that will get you straight up into the stream. Again, anyone else wanting to join and debate, feel free to join us through here. Okay, going back to the comments. Animals suffer as well, you know that, right? Exactly, which is why our movement supports doing animal extinction first before considering human extinction. Right, so we don't even want humanity to decline in population until we've done animal extinction first. James, if we eliminated 99% of the suffering, would life still not be morally good because there's still that 1%? Correct. So even one victim having to suffer is unacceptable. And so people struggle to understand this because they kind of assume that there must be some amount of happiness that can justify cruelty. That if one person is being tortured so that one person can have fun, okay, maybe that's not fair. But if two people have fun torturing the other victim, maybe it is fair, right? If two people are raping one person, well, it's just a minority that's suffering, right? So surely that must be okay. Unfortunately, this insanely ridiculously simplistic way of thinking about ethics and morality, where it's like, well, if the majority says it's okay, it must be, right? If two people are raping one person, then it's only a minority suffering, so it must be okay, right? And that is the exact, insane, ridiculous morality that people apply to life, right? Well, if there's one person forced into a bad life, but there's one person in a good life, then it balances out, right? If there's a child being abused just so that you can continue to live, it balances out, right? But no, it doesn't. So happiness cannot balance out or cancel out cruelty and extreme suffering. Like, let's say a child gets abused to death, right? It's not like there's a certain amount of ice cream that we have to eat to make it ethical, right? So instead of preventing cruelty, people would rather justify it by not preventing it, but just trying to make sure that we get enough happiness out of it. Right? So instead of helping the victims, just make sure that you exploit them enough so that it's ethical. But again, this principle directly translates to supporting gang rape, right? If there's 10 people in a happy life and one person in a bad life, then it balances out. If there's 10 people raping one person, then surely it balances out, right? Well, no, it never balances out, right? And if there's 1,000 people raping one person, that doesn't suddenly become okay, right? And if there's 1,000 people in a good life with one person in a bad life, that also doesn't suddenly make it okay. So Marco says, wow, people really think like that. And yeah, effectively, people think that extreme cruelty and suffering can be made justifiable as long as enough people benefit from it, right? So instead of preventing the cruelty, they would rather just benefit from it so much so that it makes the cruelty acceptable. For example, when talking about if we should allow animal agriculture, some people will genuinely say, what if my pleasure from, eating that sandwich does outweigh the years of suffering or the months of suffering that the animal had to go through, right? So that they genuinely think that, an animal being tortured for, 5 months, for example, it can be made up for as long as you enjoy the cheeseburger enough, right? So it's a mentality that says, right, exploit victims instead of helping them. Instead of helping them, just make sure that you enjoy yourself enough so that their suffering balances out with your happiness, right? So we can solve suffering by ignoring the victims and just being really happy. Right, that's essentially people's solution to extreme suffering. Instead of helping them, we should just become happier and ignore them. Right? I don't think anyone thinks that. Look, realistically, Cora, people don't really think this, but they effectively think this. Right? This is the extrapolation, the implications of their positions, right? So yeah, someone can absolutely say, well, no, I've never thought about it that way. I don't think I support child abuse. I don't, but most people don't think about it to begin with, and they end up just accepting it and supporting child abuse, etc., by default, right? So we grow up in a society that tells you to ignore the suffering of others, and that if you want to essentially do something about the suffering of others, then you should just be happier, right? So should we help the victim? No. We should just be happier, and that will cancel out their suffering. So it's the most selfish and ridiculous way possible to deal with suffering and victimization. It's like, there's a child over there being tortured. Now, I could go and rescue them, or if I play enough video games tonight, then it will balance out. And yeah, so instead of doing the right thing and helping the victim, people have this incredible idea that they can just be more selfish and more self-obsessed so that it cancels out the suffering of others, right? And in this crazy society that people support, essentially it's wrong to care about the sufferers, right? If you care about the victims of suffering, then you're decreasing your own happiness and you're decreasing the balance which justifies their suffering. So don't care about them, never try to help them, just be as happy as you can, and that way we can help the victim, basically. Right? So it's completely nuts. It's completely nuts. Right? We should prevent suffering instead of trying to be, if you enjoy the cheeseburger loads, right? Really savor the cheeseburger. And now the animal exploitation is ethical, right? The animal that was tortured horrifically for your cheeseburger, we can make that torture okay. Just make sure you enjoy that cheeseburger, because if you don't, if you cough or something while eating it, then that's unethical, bro. That animal suffered for no reason. It's literally like you couldn't make this stuff up. We live in a complete dystopia, a farce of a dystopia, where it's just pure evil, and people are finding ways to justify it. Okay, Cynthia says, I was beaten and abused for years by my family, and I would live that hell for eternity. So, yeah, but that doesn't mean that you should encourage other children to be abused, right? So that is what you're doing. You're saying, should we end all child abuse? Well, no, basically. I would go through it, and I think others should as well. So, yeah, that person in the chat is directly encouraging child abuse, and yeah, it's no surprise, right? I'm not like, oh my God, what did they say? All humans support child abuse. So it's kind of like, expected behavior. Someone is encouraging child abuse in the chat. Typical humans, right? I'm not even making this up. This is the reality. Anyway, so let's see. Guys, come on. Let's get more people in the Discord. Let's get a debate or two going. Come on. Let's have someone challenge me, join the Discord, debate me. Look, it's very easy to criticize in the chat, but, step it up. Criticize me face to face if you can. All right, let's go back to the comments. James, almost no one here would ever watch an incredibly horrible thing happening and not do anything about it. Yeah, well, that's not true, is it? Right? People are watching loads of horrible stuff going on and not doing anything about it. They watch animals get eaten alive in nature and they do nothing about it. They hear about terrible things happening on the news and they do absolutely nothing about it. Right? So that's a complete farce that you're saying that, no one would ever allow something terrible to happen if they saw it. So not only is that not true, but you're also kind of getting at the ridiculous mentality people have that you should only care if there is suffering in front of you. Right? If you see it, then it's bad. If it's out of sight, then it's okay. Right? That is also an incredibly true thing. Right? There is loads of terrible stuff going on around the world, and the victims need help. But people are only willing to help them if it's right in front of them, and it would be embarrassing not to help them. But as long as no one's looking, there's no victim right in front of me, then suddenly I don't feel embarrassed doing nothing to help anyone and just being selfish all day, every day. Right? So it's an out of sight, out of mind mentality that everybody is engaging in. Right? We hide the victims in the countryside. We hide them out in nature. The victims of child abuse are hidden away behind closed doors. Right? The elderly who are suffering are hidden away in the care homes. So we end up with a really cool city, a really cool society, because it's just the best of the best, the creme de la creme. Right? But it's sustained by ridiculous amounts of extreme cruelty, like ridiculous amounts of bad lives and extreme pure hell being forced onto innocent victims. And yeah, the meat grinder, which most of life goes into, just produces, an exciting environment for the very lucky, the very privileged, right? The top 1% of humanity. Okay, and yeah, most of the people in the chat probably are in the top 1% of humanity. Look, unless you're in Indonesia or you're in a Chinese, countryside or something, yeah, you're probably doing better than most, okay? And so it's just insane amounts of privilege. All right, let's get back to the chat. I wouldn't mind looking the other way from extinction if the money was worth it. Yeah, I'm sure you would be completely immoral. No surprise. Let's see if there's any more comments in the chat that are worth talking about. What are you currently doing to reduce suffering as you work towards your final solution? So we were actually working towards the end of all suffering and the prevention of suffering. So most of the suffering that we want to help, and most of the victims that we want to help, are actually in the future. So preventing them from being forced to exist is that is total prevention of suffering instead of reduction, right? So if you've got billions of years of future victims, it's better to just prevent all of it instead of reducing it so that there's still billions of years of terrible suffering which is just slightly reduced. No, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, reducing suffering is something that it's not a real thing either, right? There is no way to reduce suffering for over 99% of the population on this planet, which are wild animals in nature. Right? Nobody has ever reduced their suffering in the history of the planet, and they never will, because there is no way to reduce wild animal suffering. So when you say, what are we doing to reduce their suffering? That would be like spitting in their faces, right? Instead of preventing their suffering, we would specifically go out of a way to let it continue, but just reduce it slightly. No, that would be evil. It's like reducing slavery instead of ending slavery. It's like saying, guys, you should never end slavery. We should just reduce it slightly. We make too much money, right? We make too much money off of slavery. Don't end it. Just reduce it. And it's like, oh, you activists fighting for the end of slavery? Well, what are you doing to reduce it? It's a trick, right? Because if they then went on to start reducing slavery, right, how do you even do that? So it's a trick. Reducing suffering is it's a gaslighting trick. There's actually nothing to it. They want you to accept the premise that I'm a good person. I support reducing suffering, even though reducing suffering isn't even real. So if someone says, I support reducing suffering, not ending it, then it's like, I support doing nothing. I support just maintaining the current system of suffering. Now, I want to sound slightly less evil and say I support reducing suffering, even though there is no way to reduce suffering. So effectively, that means I just support suffering, right? But we should never end it. So we should never end suffering, and we should only reduce it, which isn't even possible. So yeah, what kind of clown would I be if I, believed that? Right? How are you going to reduce suffering for wild animals? And why would you? It's like, imagine if there was a child being abused next door, right? Should you reduce their suffering? Maybe like, knock on the door and say, hello, mister, I know you're abusing a child next door. I thought that, obviously we shouldn't end their suffering or prevent it, but I thought we could reduce it slightly. So here's some paracetamols. Here's some ibuprofen. See if this reduces the suffering of the child. Anyway, good luck and have fun. So that is effectively what it sounds like when you say let's reduce suffering instead of ending it. It's like saying, oh, let's not end child abuse, guys. Let's just give them paracetamols. Like, let's not end slavery. Let's just give them cushions. It's like, what is wrong with you? Reduce it instead of ending it? What? So someone says only God can save children from abuse. There is no God coming. Where is he saving the children from abuse, right? Your God, by your religion, has forced them to suffer here. He's not coming to help them. He's essentially the one that is their enemy. James, were you abused as a child? No. I mean, a little bit of, not really, my dad, did hit us a little bit, but not much really. So, compared to other people, no, not really. Let's see, any more interesting comments? Your infographic is poorly designed and hard to tell why you're here. Yeah, that's a fair comment. I do regularly redesign it, so I can have a look at that. Thank you for your constructive criticism. I do appreciate actually people giving me advice. The other link for your website worked, but it wasn't the right group. Well, okay, got you. Let's see, any more comments? Guys, also, don't forget, put my name in your comment, tag me with the @ and it'll be easier for me to see your comment and respond to it. James, how do you explain all the donations of time and resources being sent to victims? Yeah, that's a good question. So why is there so much charity going on in the world, right? People are donating money to charitable causes. And the answer is that these are pro-life causes, right? So it's pro the fantasy. That's essentially the answer to your question, right? People donate money in order to support the fantasy, the pro-life fantasy, right? That the world is good, yeah, everything's great, we just need a little bit of charity here and boom, right? So for example, some people donate money to charity to feel less guilty or because they irrationally think that, yeah, you can just do whatever you want, right? Charity doesn't need to be done intelligently, you just pick a cause and send some money, boom, done. No more moral obligation, you're a good person now, you can go back to being selfish. So yeah, look, charity existing is not really that impressive. It's irrational. It's unhelpful. It just supports reduction of guilt, and it supports the pro-life fantasy that we live in a good world when we actually don't. James is smart because the topic is unbeatable on only a moral level. No, I mean it's about rationality as well. So I mean, the more rational you are, the less religious you are, the less selfish you are, the less greedy you are. So basically, every bad thing about humanity is caused by irrationality. And the more rational you are, the less bad things to do with humanity you will have, right? You will become more selfless, more considerate, more empathetic, more willing to help, more willing to do the right thing, and more willing to give up your own luxuries and comforts in order to help others, which most people are not willing to do, right? They have a mentality of everyone should just be selfish, and that way everything will be fine, which is just obviously completely cope, right? It's completely insane. Just in the same way that they think that if everyone is just really selfish, then it will balance out all of the suffering, right? Just be selfishly really happy, and that way we don't have to help the victims. We can just cancel out their suffering with our selfish happiness. Right? And this isn't even exaggerations. These are actually facts, right? This is actually true. I still get abused, no matter where I live or how well I might be. Men have always abused me. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. And yeah, think about it. Yeah, that's going to happen way worse all around the world and continue on unless we stop it. So yeah, there's lots of examples of terrible suffering, and there's all of the people giving stories of their suffering. Obviously, we're sorry that you're going through that. But the problem is that a lot of people giving these stories, and I'm not saying it's you doing it, but I just want to point out that a lot of people giving their stories about how they suffer, because someone just did it in the chat, right, about 10 minutes ago, and was encouraging child abuse, for example. So a lot of people give their story of, oh, well, I had a bad life, and, I suffered terribly, I got child abused, but, it made me a better person, and yeah, I think it's good for people, right? So whether they realize it or not, they're actually encouraging child abuse. Instead of saying, we should put an end to child abuse or we should try and stop it, they're doing the exact opposite and saying, I had a great experience with child abuse. It's like, what? How does that help the conversation with prevention of child abuse exactly? It does the opposite. Right. So yeah, look, lots of people do this all the time where they say, I've suffered terribly and I think others should suffer terribly as well. But being a victim does not give you the right to create other victims and to support victimization of others. Now, a lot of people, amazingly, do think it gives them the right? Dozens and dozens and dozens of people are constantly saying, well, I got abused as a kid, and I don't think we should prevent others from being abused as kids. It's like, well, what the hell is wrong with you? Right? It's like a slave, the luckiest slave on the farm is like, guys, slavery is really not that bad. It's like, okay, something's wrong with you. You're encouraging slavery now. All right, again, still hoping to get some people join the Discord. If anyone wants to chat, debate, discussion, ask a question, even if it's just one question, feel free to join and we'll get you up. He's thinking a lot like the billionaires. No, the billionaires became billionaires through selfishness, right? If I was thinking like a billionaire, I would be trying to make money right now, right? Instead, I'm trying to help the worst off victims in the world, right? There's quite a difference. I'm not making money doing this. It's the opposite, right? So yeah, I would say that's the opposite of what a billionaire would do, right? Should I make as much money as I can, or make no money and try to help others as much as I can? Which do you guys think a billionaire would choose? Should I make as much money as I can, or make as little money as I can and help people as much as I can? Which do you guys think a billionaire would choose? All right. Again, nobody encouraged child abuse. No, you definitely did encourage it. Again, if we're talking about, guys, we should put a stop to child abuse, right? If your answer to that is, I was abused as a kid and I think it was great, right? I have a great life. Then all that does is serve to support and defend child abuse. You're saying, well, it's not always that bad. Okay, so what? And so Cynthia doesn't even realize that she's encouraging child abuse, right? If you're literally saying, guys, child abuse isn't always that bad, then, what if someone reads that and is like, oh, okay, well, I guess I can just go and do it then, or... Yeah, so, look, we should be speaking out against cruelty, not trying to defend it, not saying, oh, someone, abused me horrifically and it wasn't that bad. Yeah, we shouldn't try to stop it. That's obviously evil, and that's obviously what you were trying to do. James, how do you intend to force euthanasia onto everyone? It's a great question. So it will be kind of easy with animals, and then when it comes to humans, it might be difficult, but we'll just have to find a way. So obviously the main problem there is resistance. So if we can solve the problem of resistance, then we can do it. That's it. It's as simple as that. So yeah, is it challenging? Is it a difficult problem to solve? Yeah, absolutely. Do we have a minority now against the majority? Yeah, absolutely. But we're going to try and solve that problem. Why wouldn't we? Okay, so let's see. How do you intend to do the euthanasia, though? I mean, look, we don't know how it's going to be done, and that doesn't really matter. What matters is that it gets done, essentially. And look, euthanasia, hopefully we can find ways to make it painless. In fact, we might even be able to find ways to make it pleasurable, right? Imagine if instead of, I don't want to go extinct, it's like, oh yeah, that feels nice. Oh, poof. So, if we can find a way to do that, right, that would be awesome. However, if there is no way to do extinction painlessly and it has to be painful, then it's still better than allowing all of the suffering. Like, it really is impossible to do worse than life is already doing. Like, effectively, it would be the most impossible thing ever to try and make worse suffering than life is already doing. So extinction it really doesn't add to the suffering, it just immediately prevents it. James, people don't understand what they say. This is their level of rationality. That's correct. So well done, well identified. Yeah, people actually don't understand why they are thinking what they think. So they don't understand the way their brain works, why they think what they think. However, and this is where it gets really interesting, so one of the main mechanisms which maintains people being irrational, right? Which again, it's an active countermeasure against their rationality. One of the main measures is effectively to make people arrogant. So people evolved to be arrogant, extremely arrogant. Everyone, right, including me, right? Basically, every human evolved to be horrifically arrogant, so that they would not be modest enough to accept new ideas. Okay, so essentially, to protect survival and reproduction, a fortress of irrationality had to be constructed in the brain, right? And it's so powerful, it commands the entire brain, right? So any thought has to essentially bow to the whims of survival and reproduction. If it doesn't, it will be violently rejected, but in a way where the person doesn't realize that it's happening, and they will think it's their own thought. So effectively, they'll come across extinction and be like, oh, wow, that really intelligent idea, that sounds really stupid, right? It is what will end up happening. So they will see something intelligent and it will look unintelligent. Especially, now that doesn't always happen, right? 1 + 1 = 2, they can agree to it. So what this means is that it's specifically to do with concepts and thoughts and logic connected to survival and reproduction. So that, yeah, they can say 1 + 1 = 2. I agree. We shouldn't allow child abuse. Ooh. Hang on a minute. That goes against survival and reproduction. So we can't do that, basically. But instead of, it coming out like that, it will come out in a horrifically horrible, ugly way where they're like, well, children benefit from it anyway, right? Child abuse isn't all that bad. I got child abused and it wasn't that bad for me. So, so yeah, let's go back to the chat. So if you had a button that nukes the entire Earth, would you press it? No. So extinctionists like myself in the pro-extinction movement are working towards the most intelligent extinction possible, the most vast and thorough possible. So ideally working towards a universe with no life and no possibility of life ever again, or as close to that as we can do, even if it's just Earth. But nukes would not do a proper job. Like, there is life in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Chernobyl, plenty of life, right? In fact, it never even left. The nuke didn't even wipe out the life. So nukes can't do that. The last asteroid had the power of over 1 billion nukes, still didn't cause total extinction. So it has to be done intelligently. And so we can start with animals just by, ending their suffering with euthanasia, bit by bit, over time. There's obviously all the animals in farms that we can protect from suffering, and then there's all of the wild animals as well. I mean, humanity has already chopped down over 50% of the forests on the planet, so to finish the job is really not that hard of a job. Now, we do have to remove our dependence on animals while doing it, so that we can continue to live with 0 animals on the planet, while we continue to research making as much of the world as uninhabitable as possible. So it's not just removing life, we also have to make it impossible for life to return. And so once we've completed that scientific mission and we've done the best that we can, perhaps we've made the whole universe uninhabitable, or perhaps we've managed to replace ourselves with robots and AI who can continue the mission after we've gone. So as soon as humanity is no longer needed, they've either completed the mission or they've handed it over to robots. That's when we can do human extinction and make them safe from suffering. But so again, we have to do extinction intelligently. Would we nuke the planet? No. We want the planet to be stable so that we can do proper research and science and do things intelligently. So extinctionism, it's against chaos, right? We're against violence, self-harm, suicide, viruses, war, instability, right? The more stable the planet is, the easier it will be for us to do effective science and prevention of suffering. All right, getting back to the chat. He wouldn't do it. He couldn't chat for tokens if everyone was dead. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I don't actually receive any tokens or anything. At least I don't think I'm receiving any tokens. I'm on OBS, so I'm not actually on YouTube. But I'm assuming I'm not getting any donations yet. Even with Cora in the audience, which is just outrageous. Anyway, someone says, I'm baffled here. Okay, so my name is James. I am an activist for the pro-extinction movement, and we are working towards the maximum prevention of life existing so that there can be the maximum prevention of extreme suffering and bad lives. So it's not fair for life to exist. It's not fair for those who suffer terribly, just so that others can have a bit of happiness. So that's what, animals think that's a fair system, right? Oh, yeah, I get to kill as many animals as I want, and, yeah, that's fair, right? But humans have the same morality as animals, effectively, where they think that, yeah, just all of the suffering in the world, yeah, who cares about it? So, yeah, we are against allowing suffering, whereas over 99.9% of humanity is fully and vehemently in favor of allowing suffering. Are you an antinatalist? No. Antinatalism is self-defeating. It's about doing nothing and then pretending you're a hero. Right? If you don't have children, that achieves nothing for animals or for anyone else's child. It's literally doing nothing and helping no one. So antinatalism is like the most useless thing that's ever existed. James, what about heroin overdoses as euthanasia? Yeah, potentially. Like, for real. Yeah, why not? Now, it's probably not going to be heroin, but it could be some sort of gas or something like that. Now, we don't know exactly how the euthanasia is going to go. Hell, it could be painful, right? Who cares? Who knows? That doesn't matter. What does matter is working to make it possible no matter what shape or form it takes. And so when people... Oh, hello, how you doing?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Can I do a formalized argument?
I don't really like formal arguments because I feel like it's restrictive and just makes things abstract and confusing. But yeah, I mean, sure, go ahead. Why not? I mean, I can't promise to engage in it the way that you want me to, but I can listen to it and then try and respond.
Then rather let me do it in like question based.
Yeah, I prefer that.
Yeah,
I prefer that.
So, would you say that murdering someone painlessly, like when you do the extinction, right? You want to do it painlessly, right?
It doesn't have to be painless, but ideally, yeah.
Would the single act of murder be evil, or even slightly?
Yeah, I mean,
like, would you trade one evil against another?
So all suffering is bad, right? But we shouldn't trade evil and stuff like that. We should just work towards the total end of all bad things and all suffering. If that makes sense.
So the whole act of extinguishing all life altogether, the act itself would not be evil.
No. Now, any suffering caused by extinction would be bad, but still essentially the lesser of two evils.
And so there are two things, like either there would be no suffering from this extinction, like we find some way that it would be completely painless.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be painless.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. I know but you would be fine with either, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really cause more suffering with extinction than you prevent, right? Let's say we use a gas and it happens to be painful. if you suffer terribly for even an hour, it's still nothing compared to an entire lifetime, and absolutely nothing compared to the billions of years of future suffering, which relies on that 30 seconds, 1 hour, whatever it is, amount of suffering.
Would you agree that all life in the universe would be infinite? That there's infinite amounts of current existing conscious life?
I don't think it's necessarily infinite. It's probably more countable, if that makes sense. Now, our science indicates that the universe will most likely be full of life. And so we do believe there is, and even if there was nothing to indicate that it's very likely, we should still not take chances, especially when you consider that we could just potentially pass the mission over to AI and robots who can continue working towards universe extinction. So that there's really no reason to discount universal extinction research.
So you'd say there's finite life in this universe?
But look, either way, who knows, right? We should just do our maximum prevention of life existing so that there is the maximum prevention of suffering.
Because if there was infinite, I would argue that how could you weigh these two infinites against each other? The infinite harm you would cause through killing every existing life against the infinite of all future possible suffering.
Well, again, yeah, extinction wouldn't really cause much suffering, right? Those who are in terrible pain will be relieved by it, and the selfish ones who don't care about the victims will realistically just be inconvenienced by it. They won't actually be made to suffer that badly.
But it's still two infinites, right?
No, again, the pain that extinction causes is nothing in comparison to the pain that life causes.
And this is, I think, the main point I would disagree with.
Really?
Like, I wouldn't-
So
yeah,
you
I
think
don't-
30 seconds of going to sleep, you think that can be worse than billions of years of extreme suffering?
No, but not substantially worse. To the point where
So 30 seconds of suffering compared to billions of years of suffering, you think it's basically the same?
on an infinite scale, yes.
So yeah, apparently 30 seconds of suffering is now the exact same as billions of years of suffering. So this is why I say that irrationality will make people say completely insane things. And this is actually one of the most common things that people end up saying, which is completely insane, right? It's like saying that a speck, one grain of sand is more than the entire beach. Is what it's saying. It's like someone picking up a grain of sand and saying, wow, this is bigger than the entire beach. It's like, wow, that guy's got something really wrong with him.
Well, I think you failed to address my point of saying on an infinite scale.
No, that's essentially just like a dishonest argument, right? That's not a real argument. You're instead of actually engaging with the real world, you've made up some sort of two parallel infinite amounts of suffering, which is just some weird, abstract concept that's nothing to do with reality.
If there was infinite life,
yeah,
it would be reality,
there's no indication that there is infinite life, and even if there were, then you would still be wrong.
Could you demonstrate how I'm still wrong if it were? If we presuppose this for the second?
Well, again, you're not really arguing within reality. So you're asking me to essentially argue with a completely twisted and malformed, non-existent version of reality.
The only thing I'm presupposing is that there's infinite life.
Yeah, which you shouldn't. That you have no reason to do that.
But you also have no reason to presuppose finite life.
This is just completely irrational, right? We're saying we should do our best to prevent extreme torture, and you're saying, no, there could be finite or infinite life somewhere in the universe, so just allow child abuse. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. And again, it's like your grain of sand argument being bigger than the entire beach. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Jan-Philippe, thank you for coming up. We're going to move on, see if there's anybody else that wants to debate. But yeah, that just doesn't make any sense. So effectively,
extinction will make people the most irrational that they can be. It will bring out the worst levels of rationality from them. It will make them say completely insane things like 30 seconds of suffering, that is the exact same as billions of years of suffering. Yeah, it's the exact same. It's like, wow, there's something really wrong with this person. And yeah, there is. Now, it's not just that person specifically, it's every human, with a few exceptions like extinctionists. So pretty much every human has the same problem where they are so irrationally dedicated to survival and reproduction that anything sensical or logical will essentially be like rejected in order to protect the fortress of survival and reproduction. Right? So that fortress might as well be like a command, like an outpost or an Archer tower or something like that inside the brain, right? And it's like, we command survival and reproduction. Any thoughts that come close to, threatening that will be fired upon, basically. And that is genuinely an accurate description of how it works. Essentially, the subconscious monitors for thoughts that increase rationality. And it actively suppresses them by making those thoughts seem irrational. So it's like any rational thought you say will sound irrational. Like, child abuse is unacceptable. They'll be like, ooh, that sounds wrong. Animal exploitation is wrong. Ooh, that sounds wrong. Allowing people and animals to be forced into the worst lives of pure hell is wrong. Ooh, that sounds irrational. Allowing animals to be forced into the worst lives of pure hell is wrong. No, that doesn't make sense. So, yeah, in some ways, it makes people's logic completely upside down, where instead of a 1, it's a 0, right? Where the logic should be, the capacity for logic should be, and there's a 1 for the binary, it's a 0, right? Can they... yeah, it's just crazy. So again, like what's worse, 30 seconds of suffering or billions of years? And they'll be like, So they'll just choose the wrong answer. Like, well, yeah, 30 seconds of suffering is worse than billions of years of suffering, obviously. And it's like, wow, did they really just say that? And yet, people will say that same thing every single day. They will say that a speck of 1 grain of sand is larger than a beach, that extinction would cause more suffering than it would prevent. Right? And they say that every single day on my stream. So everyone makes the same completely insane mistakes. How do we achieve total extinction? Great question. So the only way to do it is to do peaceful activism, to grow the pro-extinction movement until we have enough people to take over the world, to start running it ethically, and to then begin with animal extinction, researching the most vast and thorough extinction possible, and then finally, once we've done everything that we can do to contribute towards extinction, we either complete the mission or we hand it over to AI and robots who can continue doing extinctionism and prevention of life, and then humanity could go extinct to that point. And it will be non-optional, it won't be voluntary. If you make extinction optional, then they will choose the wrong choice and suffer terribly. Abraxas, call in and present your argument on why James's position is irrational and psychotic. Yeah, I'm constantly encouraging people to join the Discord and to debate me, but the reality is that they know that they can't, probably, right? Subconsciously, they will know that they can't. So, for example, you'll see lots of people being like, "Oh, I would never debate this guy. He'll just be dishonest." And it's like, okay, well, you didn't even try. So it's not that you had a good reason, it's that you had a bad reason. Okay, let's get back to the chat. Seek an exorcist. Wow. So, yeah, ending suffering must be satanic, right? Allowing suffering, that must be good. Again, just completely insane, the positions people have. Why not leave it to nature? Because we shouldn't just leave suffering. We should do the maximum prevention of suffering, not just 0, right? You're saying provide safety and prevent child abuse and animal abuse. Why don't we just do nothing and let the victims suffer? Well,
You can do that, but the responsible people here are not going to do that. Have you done a formal debate with moderation, etc.? No. We don't really believe in that kind of stuff here at the Pro-Extinction Movement. That is kind of like for people that can't think normally or properly. Now, in terms of having a moderator on the debate, I could try it. Yeah, I'd agree to doing it. If someone said, look, we want to debate, but I want my mate in there to moderate, I'd say, okay, yeah, why not? I'll give it a go. Now, it might go badly, but I'd give it a go. I'll debate pretty much anyone. You can just join the Discord and do it right now. This guy has a very negative mindset. We have to have a very negative mindset when it comes to providing safety for the victims. Otherwise, you just simply ignore the victims, right? So it's like, guys, we should care about the victims. And people are like, oh, that's a bit negative. Why are you being so negative? The existence of victims is negative, so why help them? That's just making me depressed, is effectively what you just said in the chat. Likes the ability to kick when he's losing? No, I do kick people a lot, but only when they're like trolling, basically. Now, as I've explained, you will struggle always, every time, to get a good debate going. So most guests will end up being kicked. So if you're going to join the Discord and debate, just know that is a possibility. Now, it's not your fault, right? It's nobody's fault that they are irrational. But the more irrational you are... No, sorry, let me start that again. The longer you debate against extinction, the more irrational you will have to be, right? Because the extinctionists will be like destroying your arguments, building up powerful arguments. And so how can you counter that if you're irrational? You have to say something really irrational, like, oh, well, extinction, 30 seconds of suffering would cause more suffering than billions of years. Boom, done, right? Now, when I say boom, done, in the head of the person saying 30 seconds of suffering is more than billions of years of suffering, they think they're a genius when they say that. Like, this guy thinks that extinction would prevent more suffering than it causes. Doesn't he know that the 30 seconds that it takes to euthanize animals would cause more suffering than billions of years of extreme suffering? Irrational. And they'll arrogantly and confidently say it, right? So they're literally saying, this grain of sand is larger than an entire beach. And I bet you think it's smaller. That's what it sounds like when people say extinction would cause more suffering than it prevents. And again, you really just drive people to be ridiculously irrational if you continue debating them about extinction. I mean, look, the guy literally said, yeah, 30 seconds of suffering would be equivalent or equal to billions of years of suffering. It's like, so you are saying that a grain of sand is larger than a beach. You are completely insane. And so every argument against extinction is the exact same. It's completely crazy. Someone says there must be a deep wound here. It's funny. So extinctionists care about others and are trying to help them. And people fail to understand that concept. And so they, instead of understanding that you're just trying to be a good person and help others, because they can't do that themselves and they don't know anyone else that can do it, they assume that you have to be crazy. Right? It's like, oh, a good person? No, that's not possible. He must be crazy. So that's essentially what will just keep happening again and again and again in the chat. It's like going up against an ocean of irrationality. You're going to get all sorts of nonsense. And that's just what we get over and over again. So once again, looking for people to join the Discord. I'm sat in the voice chat and in the voice channel on my Discord right here, waiting for any challenger. And look, there's so many people, confidently criticizing me in the chat. Come and say it to my face, right? Embarrass me in front of everyone else. How about that? Can you do it? I dare you. I dare you. Try it. Much of the suffering, you would argue, is the direct and rich people. Yeah, so no, rich people are not the cause of suffering. Over 99% of suffering in this world is just animals in nature. That's nothing to do with rich people. In fact, rich people and humans in general have only ever reduced suffering on the planet. So the existence of humanity directly leads to the reduction in suffering. So the planet is basically just an ocean of trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions, quintillions actually, of wild animals being eaten alive. And then humanity comes in, bulldozes the forest, stops building roads everywhere, mining operations, chopping down the forests, building over it. And that wipes out the populations, but it wipes out their suffering. So they're just, in forests and in the oceans, anywhere animals exist, they're just suffering terribly, basically. And preventing them from existing is actually helping them, right? Because you're essentially removing them from hell, right? Now, people in the chat are like, wow, this is completely crazy. How can he say this? Well, essentially, there's people saying, oh, what? Have you asked the animals what they want? So these people in the chat essentially think that there is no animal suffering going on, that there is no terrible animal suffering ever. And we've had lots of incredibly irrational guests today that have directly said that no one is suffering anywhere. There is no suffering in the world. It's just like, wow, I wish I lived in the same world as you. But we definitely don't live in the same world. If you live in a world where there is no terrible suffering going on the planet, then can I join you? Which planet are you on? Is it Mars? 'Cause it's definitely not Earth, right? So, yeah, people are like, can you prove that animals are suffering? Which is the same thing a slave owner would say. Can you prove that my slaves are suffering? Can you prove that when I whip them and I kill them, that it actually makes them suffer? Can you prove it? So that's the same thing as people saying, oh, can you prove that animals are suffering? It's like, can you prove that children being abused are suffering? It's an unreasonable request, right? So we will constantly and continuously, repeatedly see people say, oh, prove that suffering exists. Prove that suffering is bad. Prove that animals suffer. And it's like, prove that slaves suffer. Prove that children being abused suffer. It's like, oh, guys, what do you mean? What do you mean? Prove that the victims are suffering? What's wrong with you? We know that children being abused are suffering, right? We know that animals being eaten alive are suffering. It's not reasonable to ask me to prove that. In the same, again, that would be like. Sorry, guys, my microphone is new and it's not working, which is a shame. Yeah, so I was just saying that it is the same as saying, prove that the slaves are suffering, right? I won't release my slaves until you prove that they're suffering, right? Or a child abuser saying, prove that the child is suffering, right? I'm not going to stop abusing it until you prove it's suffering. Or a psychopath saying, abusing an animal, saying, oh, prove it's suffering. Right? I'm not going to stop torturing it until you prove it. So it is the same, guys, right? When you say in the chat, prove that suffering is bad, or prove that anyone is suffering, you are no better than a child abuser saying, prove that my victim is suffering, or I'll just keep abusing them. I mean, can you guys name a significant difference between that? I would say there's absolutely none. Look, someone in the chat is saying, which animals are suffering exactly? It's like, for this guy, the mere suggestion that there's any animal suffering on the entire planet is like an offense to his understanding of the world. It's like, what? Suffering? What is that? What is this suffering concept? can you prove that suffering exists? It's like, wow, are you a billionaire? Are you a billionaire living on Mars? What's going on? Prove that suffering exists. What kind of insane level of luxury are you living in? Wow. It's amazing. Explain your theories live to a psychiatrist to prove that you're not the crazy one here. Okay, bring one on, bro. And look, psychiatrists are going to be the irrational ones. So a psychiatrist doesn't, by default have some sort of authority over me, right? And to be, by default, some sort of authority of rationality. It's the opposite. Most humans can be assumed to be completely irrational. So finding a rational human is like stumbling upon essentially the most valuable treasure that you will ever find in your life. It's just never going to happen unless you're very lucky. I bet if you got waterboarded, you would have a whole new outlook. Yeah, if I do get tortured, I will probably just use it to have more empathy for the victims who are going through even worse things. So yeah, I don't think I would be, if I got tortured by someone, I don't think I would be like, yes, let's allow torture. I would be like, wow, we really shouldn't allow that. It's amazing. I mean, effectively, the people in the chat are dystopian citizens, right? So the chat is a dystopia. I mean, the world is a dystopia. So, just imagine that you've been transported to an alien planet, which is a dystopia, right? And we're advocating against cruelty, right? And we're seeing all of these crazy people saying, how dare he advocate for the end of all cruelty and suffering? How dare he advocate for the end of child abuse? How dare he advocate for the end of animal abuse? How dare he even suggest that animals are suffering? Right? Someone else in the chat now is saying, define animal suffering. It's like, wow, you really cannot understand that suffering exists for animals, can you? That's beyond your ability. The simple ability to understand that animals can suffer is beyond your capacity, apparently. Wait, what? Extinction is the answer? Extinction is the answer for the victims of life. Extinction is only bad for selfish and greedy, unethical, immoral people that don't care about the victims. Right? So for the selfish, greedy people in this world, the victims of life are just a joke, an inconvenience at best. And for many of the people in the chat, they don't even exist. There are no victims, right? It's like existing during the time of slavery and being like, yeah, there is no slavery. What slaves? I didn't know slavery existed. It's the same thing. How can you prove that suffering exists, right? What level of irrationality could possibly take you to that? Well, it's the same one that could make you say that a grain of sand is bigger than a beach, that extinction would cause more suffering than it prevents. It's madness, insanity, irrationality. This is what we're looking at. So the dystopia, the evil people in the chat and in the world, again, it's not their fault, right? They are effectively animals that have not evolved out of their animalistic nature. So for the entirety of the history of life on Earth, the only thing that could get life to want to survive and reproduce was to make it irrational, right? Because the thing is that wanting to survive and reproduce is not something that you would just go out of your way to do. It's not something that you would rationally come to do of your own volition. Right? In fact, it would be the opposite. You wouldn't want to survive. You wouldn't want to reproduce. You wouldn't want to suffer or to make others suffer. So survival and reproduction can only happen with extreme levels of irrationality evolving. Right? So you have, let's say there is no irrationality. You've got two life forms. One wants to survive because it genetically evolved to do so, and the other just is neutral. Right? So that one is probably going to die, and the one that genetically evolved to just happens to want to live, right? Not because it's a good thing, it's just because that's how evolution works. Random mutations pop up, right? So it could either be a bad mutation, like every time you wipe your ass, it's going to burn, right? Or it could be a different mutation, like you really want to survive, or you really want to reproduce. Okay, so that's how life works. And so it's only evolution that has forced this irrationality into life that makes it survive and reproduce. And so humans have still got that problem. They have not evolved out of it, right? Without an irrationally insane obsession with surviving and reproducing, life just wouldn't exist, guys. Okay? The conditions for life are too hostile in this world. The environment is far too hostile. You've got crazy weather conditions, you've got starvation, you've got predators everywhere trying to rip you apart at all costs. You've got diseases, you've got injuries, illnesses, right? All sorts of things trying to stop you from reproducing. You've got rationality trying to stop you from reproducing and surviving, right? Saying like, okay, I don't want to suffer and I don't want to make others suffer. So you've got all of these forces trying to prevent you from surviving and reproducing. And so massive evolutionary pressure. Okay, so massive pressure in the meat grinder, and only the completely like religious almost, and the completely insane ones, the completely irrational ones, the completely selfish and unethical ones, the completely uncaring ones, right? Those are the ones that will survive. And so the good people, or the ones that aren't selfish and cruel, they'll just go extinct, guys, right? Good people, or good animals, if you will, in the past, they would have gone extinct. So only the ones that evolved and had genetic mutations which made them cruel and selfish and uncaring and unkind, that was the only way for life to exist. It was just simply too competitive without that. It was a strict and essential requirement, right? Without extremely high levels of irrationally wanting to survive and reproduce, life would not have made it, right? It just simply wouldn't have. It wouldn't have want to have lived. It wouldn't have want to have reproduced. And so, yeah, humans have still got that. And they think that just because they can talk, that they have full rationality, which is really funny. Hello. Yes, this is an extinction debate, yeah. If you unmute yourself on Discord, then I'll be able to hear you. Okay, no, they left. But yeah, feel free to join back. Let's see, let's try and invite him directly into the thingy. See if I can do that. Yeah, I mean, we've got someone in the Discord now. Let's try and debate them. Let's see. But yeah, guys, we're still doing debates. If you want to debate, join the Discord. We'll get you in and we'll hear your opinion. Someone says, call a psychiatrist. No, call an extinctionist for all of the suffering going on in the world, right? Don't call the Ghostbusters. Don't call a psychiatrist. Call the extinctionist. Oh no, there's loads of life suffering terribly. There's only one thing to do. Call an extinctionist. I need an extinction, please. There's bad lives going on at the expense of the victims. We can't allow this anymore. Extinction's on the way. Thank you. How long will it take? Just as long as it takes to do the activism. Yeah, okay, well then we'll just keep doing activism to make it total extinction possible. We are growing the movement until we have enough people to do it. And we have people joining every single day from all around the world. All right, there is someone in the Discord. They're probably new to Discord, don't know how to use it. So I'm going to try and guide them into the voice channel, see if we can get them into it and get the debate going. They're struggling. They are having technical difficulties. Okay, let's see. Any more questions? Oh, okay, it's ringing them. It's ringing. Hello? No? No, they're still not in. Okay. Look, I actually do want to get a better platform than Discord for these debates. So if anyone can suggest a better way than using Discord, I'd love to hear it. Humans make mistakes. That's why we need to learn to be better. We do need to learn to be better and to not allow suffering ever again and to work towards total extinction. That is the only way that humans can do better, right? Is to work towards a suffering-free world. Someone says, wow, you must be a Nazi. Well, look, working towards a suffering-free world is only going to be bad for selfish people, Nazis like yourself, potentially. The victims of life and suffering need extinction. So only selfish people would go against that and say, yeah, keep them suffering so that I can have fun. Right? Life is just an unnecessary thing. It's a privilege, a luxury, a comfort. It's not something you actually need. No one actually needs to be alive. No one actually needs to have a good life. Whereas the victims of extreme suffering and bad lives do need to be made safe, right? They actually require that. They need it. No one needs to be alive, whereas the victims of bad lives do need to not be alive. Okay, that is a fact. Now, you could say, oh, James, how can you say that the victims of extreme suffering need to stop living? Well, if that's the only way to save them from suffering, then yeah, they need it. And Chewy in the chat says they need hope. Right? No, hope causes more suffering, right? That's optimism bias, which is essentially saying they need hope is like saying they don't need safety or to be responsible for safety. They should just continue suffering terribly, and they should have hope instead of safety, right? This guy in the chat said they need hope. It's like saying, yeah, instead of making them safe from suffering, they should just have hope. So, like, if there's a child being abused next door, instead of helping them, they should have hope, right? So instead of calling the police, write a little note and slip it through the window saying, help is coming, right? Even though it's not, right? That way, the child being abused can have hope instead of help. Great idea, Chewy, in the chat. Yeah, the victims need hope instead of help. Yeah, great idea. So let them suffer, tell them that we're going to help, and then don't help. Fantastic. This dude is a troll. I'm not a troll, okay? I am actually an activist for total extinction. I'm doing activism right now. This is not a troll stream. It's activism stream. It's an activism stream for our social justice movement, the pro-extinction movement. So ending that child is helping. Yeah, essentially. Taking life away from a dangerous environment like this world does help. Now, how does it help? It prevents them from suffering in unacceptable and terrible ways. And so, there are ways that you can suffer where it does make it so bad that you would be better off not existing. And if you disagree with that, then you're just lying to yourself. Right? You're smoking copium so that you can just fantasize that there is no suffering that makes life bad ever. So, guys, if you really think that there is no such thing as suffering which makes life not worth living for any individual ever, then you are obviously like level over 9,000 for insanity and irrationality. Right? Your level of irrationality is over 9,000 if you really think that there's no lives of pure hell going on around the world. Right? If you've actually deluded yourself into thinking that we're in some sort of paradise and nobody is suffering ever, then yeah, well done. You are essentially the poster child for survival and reproduction. You don't care about anyone else. You don't even... Yeah, I mean, look, that would be like the pinnacle of nature's achievement, right? To force to continue successfully doing survival and reproduction. You get them to be so irrational that they say that suffering doesn't exist. Right? That would be the ultimate way to make life irrationally reproduce and survive. Right? Is to have genetic adaptations that actually make you think that suffering never exists. So there's lots of people in the chat right now saying, can you prove that anyone is actually suffering? Can you prove that animals actually suffer? Which animals are you talking about that are suffering terribly? It's like, wow, okay, so the evolution that made life irrationally want to survive and reproduce, it did a really good job on you, right? You don't think there's any downsides to life existing. There is no suffering. So all of the children being abused don't exist. All of those suffering with terrible illnesses don't exist. So that would be the pinnacle that for life and nature, right, is to get people to think that suffering doesn't even exist, right? Wow, you've made them so irrational that they don't think that suffering even exists anymore. Congratulations, evolution. You have made them completely brain dead. Well done. They will survive and reproduce like complete toys, effectively, at this point. But well done. So that's it. And people keep saying in the chat, nobody is saying that. And this happens all the time. This is a really funny phenomenon, right? People are constantly saying in the chat, James, come on, nobody is saying that. And you would think so, right? You would think so. You would hope that nobody would be saying that. And it's like, no way is anyone saying that. Come on, that would really be insane. And yet people are constantly saying that. So yeah, people are like, James, come on, people are not saying that. That would be outrageous. We don't live in a world where that happens. But actually, we do live in that world. We do live in clown world where people are saying all of these terrible things. So, I'm constantly saying, oh, people are saying this ridiculous thing. People are saying that ridiculous thing. And people in the chat are like, come on, no one ever says that. Well, your refusal to believe that they are saying that is it's fantastic, right? Because you're essentially saying, I can't believe anyone would ever say that. That would be insane. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you're saying that, because look at all these people saying it, and I'm saying that they're insane. So yeah, the fact that you don't even believe they exist contributes to me pointing out how insane their opinions actually are. But they do happen. So look, when I say things that sound like an exaggeration, it's usually not an exaggeration at all. Like, not even in the slightest, even though it sounds like it, right? People support child abuse so that life can exist. That's not an exaggeration in the slightest. People are perfectly happy for child abuse to exist so that some people can have good lives, or Formula One, right? Is that an exaggeration? No, we had someone in the debate earlier say, we asked him, what can justify child abuse? And he said, well, I enjoy the Formula One. Right? So look, when I'm saying these crazy things, I'm not exaggerating, but it sounds like it because people are just that crazy, and it's hard to believe it. It's like, well, surely we don't live in a world where people are that crazy, but the reality is that we do. And the same incredulity towards irrational people saying insane things is unfortunately also being done towards the existence of extreme suffering. So people are incredulous towards the existence of such insanely irrational people and statements, but which, even though they are happening, and they are also incredulous towards the extreme suffering and lives of pure hell going on all around the world, even though they are happening. So people are effectively living in a fantasy delusion. Right? They are living in a different world. Right? They're living in some sort of weird fantasy where it's just completely disconnected from the truth of reality, effectively. Did this guy do his hair for this? No. I actually had a really terrible haircut about a month ago, and it's finally growing out to start looking better. I don't do anything to my hair. This is straight out of the shower, no products or anything. I just do that, and that's it, done. Takes about 1 second. So yeah, incredulous. Absolutely, that is the word of the day. All right, guys, so I'm going to get going soon. It's 8 p.m. now in the United Kingdom, and I've been streaming since, midday, basically. I did take a break, obviously, but yeah, I've done a lot of streaming today, and I will continue to be streaming all week, and probably every week until I get banned off of YouTube, which will, probably happen eventually. Good chance. So yeah, how much time do I have left? I've still got a bit of time for another debate if anybody wants. So I'm in the Discord. We do have somebody saying they're getting ready to join and debate in the Discord. So bear with us for a couple of minutes, and hopefully we should have somebody joining soon. So somebody says, say hello to the police when they arrive. Well, I've been doing this activism for 14 months, and I've said all sorts of, crazy things, right? And I've never had the police question me or contact me even once. So I had, over 12 million views on TikTok doing this. For months. I was pretty big on TikTok. My best video had nearly 1 million views, and then I had, hundreds of videos in total. I had about, 15 million, 1.3 million likes or something like that. And yeah, the police never questioned me, never contacted me. So I've been doing this full throttle, right? I've been doing this full throttle for a year. and I've never been contacted by the police, even though I'm semi-famous at doing it. So it's not like the police just haven't discovered me yet. There's probably been loads of police officers watch my content and say, yeah, that's fine. All right, we've got Cine in the chat, in the Discord. Feel free to unmute yourself and say hello. Just waiting for Cine to unmute themselves. Yeah, Cine, hello, how you doing?
Sign, yeah, hi.
Sign, yes. Yeah, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I apologize that this is my first time encountering your stream. And so I have a couple of probably basic questions that you get
That's
thousands of
perfectly
times
fine.
a day.
Yeah, it's fine.
How would you define suffering?
Like negative experiences?
Okay. But just negative can be somewhat subjective though, yeah?
Well, we don't really need to, like, the thing is, if you try to define it and obsess over the definition, then you end up just tripping over yourself.
Okay, that's fair enough. I don't think I've quite to the tripping part yet. And or nor obsession. I'm just trying to get a boundary of where
There is no
what
boundary.
exactly we're talking about.
We don't need boundaries, right? That doesn't actually help.
If somebody doesn't like the rain, are they suffering when it rains?
Yeah, potentially.
I see. So basically everything could be considered suffering.
Okay,
Like
well,
everything.
okay.
Rainbows-
Here's where I think you're going wrong. Right? Is that it's not that, like, stubbing your toe means that life can't be allowed to exist. You seem to be completely ignoring the extreme suffering.
I haven't ignored anything. We haven't brought that up at all in
Well,
the conversation. So
the abolition of suffering isn't because of rainbows.
I'm trying. I asked you about that just to try to get the boundaries of what suffering means to you.
Yeah. Well,
Understand.
again, it's not rainbows that we're concerned about. It's the extreme suffering, right? The bad lives, the lives of pure hell going on, right?
Okay, so would you agree that not everyone's life is constant suffering?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that allowing suffering is now fair, though.
Allowing suffering.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's something that we allow.
It is.
necessarily.
It is. Yeah. It is.
There's no way to prevent every situation from occurring.
There
in
is.
all
There is.
situations.
With extinction, you can do it. And even
I
if
don't
it's just reducing suffering, people don't do that either. They still allow the suffering. So to
they
say
have
that,
the power to reduce suffering.
yeah,
I mean, aside from extincting themselves.
humans are very capable of doing things,
Right.
such
But when you talk to
as
these situations
reducing
of,
suffering.
we should reduce suffering. Well, we can't possibly be aware of all instances of suffering. Nor
Yeah,
would we have the
but
power to
yeah,
go around the other side of the world and stop an event if we did know about it.
right. But look, we what we can do is work towards total extinction and the total prevention of life ever coming back.
Okay, that seems extreme.
Well, suffering is extreme.
Suffering can be extreme. Not all suffering is extreme.
Well, no, now that sounds like you're trying to defend the existence of extreme suffering, trying to downplay it, basically.
No.
So
It's
you're
just that
saying
you take it at face value.
no, look,
Some suffering
there is
okay.
there's extreme suffering going on, and you're saying, trying to solve that seems a bit extreme. Well, suffering's not that bad. So yeah, it is downplaying it and saying you want to solve it.
Dishonest, but
It's not.
What,
It's not.
so what does animals have to do with this?
Animals suffer as well, and we shouldn't let them suffer.
How do you know they suffer?
What do you think it's unreasonable to assume that animals suffer?
I think that would depend.
Yeah,
Like,
you think that we should just allow animal abuse and stuff like that because we should just
You're
assume?
we should allow this. I'm not
Yeah,
talking about allowing anything.
yeah. You are talking about it.
No, I'm not.
You want to have your
Okay,
cake and
so-
eat it. You are talking about. We're talking about allowing suffering. What topic are you talking about? Not the same one as me, I guess. Not the same one as me.
Okay, I don't know if a conversation can be had if everything has to tie in directly with absolute or profound suffering. Like there's no way to talk about other things.
Well, yeah, but the thing is that would be a straw man. That would be a straw man. If you want to talk about a world, if you want to discuss a world where there is no extreme suffering, then essentially, you want a straw man.
Whatever.
Whatever. All right, that's it. You're finished, buddy. Right? If you have no respect for, honest debate, effectively, and it's like, we should debate honestly. He's like, whatever. Then guess what? I'm going to kick you out. It's like, so we should debate honestly. He's like, oh, whatever. What? Then guess what? I'm not going to debate you. Now, if you would have said, yeah, okay, it's fair to debate honestly and to hold people to account for what they say, then I wouldn't have kicked him. In fact, I wasn't even going to kick him until he was like, debate fairly and honestly. Would you want to debate with someone that's just said, debate fairly and honestly? Would you? Would you guys? Would you really? Yeah, I'm sure you would. Anyway, I'm going to get going, guys. I will be debating tomorrow, doing the same thing all day, all week, pretty much. And check out my videos as well, my shorts. I'll be producing shorts on YouTube as well, which I do every day. But yeah, look, people are so unable to argue against extinction that they'll say things like, you think animals are suffering? This guy thinks animals suffer. This guy thinks animal abuse is wrong because he thinks animals suffer. This guy thinks animals actually suffer. Right, so that's the level of insanity that guy had, right? And so, yeah, there's no point talking to someone like that. Anyway, I'll see you all tomorrow, guys. I got to get going. Peace out and subscribe. And love to